Well,
The floor is yours.
well, firstly, I'd like to thank Tullis and all the team for putting on today. It's sessions like this that really do help with the rare breeds and bringing us all together to see what we can do to help the rare breeds with genetics, with AIing, with seeing how versatile the breed is. So again, I apologise I couldn't be with you today, but unfortunately I was foaling a mare at 12 last night and another one at 5 this morning, which gave me no chance to get away. So thanks to all those that attended. For those that don't know me, I'm Bruce Langley McKim. I run Thorpe Stud up in Leicestershire, and I have Suffolks and Cleveland Bays for my sins. Started off with Clevelands. I've now moved on to the Suffolks, and part of the rare breeds and getting them out there and doing something is to make them versatile. And I actually hunt my Cleveland Bay stallion, and then taking on the Suffolk stallion, I actually took him hunting and actually took him one-day eventing, of all things. These purebreds, they do make lovely partbreds. So for every partbred, there has to be a purebred. In the background here is my young Suffolk stallion, Holbeach Seth. Then we move on to Pembridge Justice, who's my little Cleveland Bay stallion, who's looking rather scruffy at the moment because he hasn't been hunting this season. Then we move on very quickly to the Jensen, the big Suffolk stallion, who was my starter kit. Then we've got the Irish Drafts, and then just quickly as I come around the yard on the other side, I'll come down to Wyvale Boomerang. This is my big Cleveland Bay stallion. So versatility in the breed. I say, as a partbred, they do make lovely animals. And for every partbred, there's got to be a purebred, which gives us a market for that. So the money that we make from selling the partbreds or covering mares to make partbreds, we can put back into the project, which I quite often do. So there's no money in breeding these rare breeds. However, the partbred money does fund my breeding projects. I've been voted onto the Suffolk Council, and that's part of my job is on the Scientific and Studbook Committee. So we are looking at doing different breeding projects. I work closely with Andy Dell on a selected mare mating scheme, which we're looking to run in 25, 26 and 27, where we take mares with very low coefficient and rare lines. And we're using some frozen semen from the past, some semen that we've got a project going with Australia. There's a Studbook stallion over there. So we've got semen collected from him, and we've selected mares for 24 for the Australian project. So we've got a lot of exciting things coming on with rare breeds. For those who don't know, I actually learnt my trade under Tullis with the AI and the collections. Came and did the course nearly 10 years ago now, and I've got just under 800 conceptions to my name. So those that are thinking of going into doing any collections and AI work, do speak to the team at Stallion AIs and Tremlos, because these courses are valuable. And if you've got a stallion out there that you're thinking of collecting, please do speak to Tullis and the team, because that genetic storage of frozen material is fantastic for bringing back lines in the future. We've got some old lines in the tanks with the Cleveland Bays and with the Suffolk Punches, and that in a few years' time will be important. The stallion at the moment might not be the most popular stallion. However, in 10 years' time, his genetics will be needed. So for those of you who have got rare breed stallions, do think ahead. The Spark Sheets, again, working very closely with Andy Dell on the Spark Sheets. This is a tool that I live by on the breeding side of things itself. Obviously, with everything, you've got to use your eye. You've got to work out whether that stallion suits your mare. But what's the point in breeding a highly line bred or inbred, as some people want to use the word, horse just to win a rosette? We want to, as rare breed breeders, be breeding for 20 years' time, so or even 30 years' time. And I'd like to think when I'm on a Zimmer frame and hopefully get to my 80s, is that I have left something behind me as a rare breed breeder. Winning a rosette means nothing to me if I'm just going to breed for next year. So again, if you're going to be breeding rare breeds, select the best you can, conformationally and everything else, but also think, where is that breeding going to be? Whether you breed a nice filly, what colts will she ever have? Or if you breed a nice colt, think, is he going to make a difference to the herd? Now, a project we've just done with the Suffolk Horse Society that I've been coordinating is that we're looking at bringing in new bloodlines and recreating bloodlines. And it's a very exciting project that in hopefully 5-6 years' time will be established, and we'll have a whole new stock of breeding lines on the floor by regenerating it from older mares. So again, if you're looking at the older mares, you might not want to breed from an older mare. However, with the embryo transfers and ICSI, which Tullis and the team can run you through, that could, if you've got a mare in the 20s, let's say, you wouldn't breed from her. However, she might have a unique line for your breed. Look at speaking to Tullis and the team and seeing whether you can do an embryo transfer from her or get eggs and do ICSI, because that could bring back a bloodline, and that one particular bloodline from an older mare will make a big difference. I've noted it with the Rare Breeds project I'm doing with Suffolk's, that by looking at our rarest mares, they're all mares in their middle teens. So we're not probably going to be able to breed from some of them to carry their own. But if you can do an embryo transfer or ICSI, then you'll make a big difference. Yes, it's costly, but if your heart's in for rare breeds and you want to have them there for your children, your grandchildren, so on and so forth, then it's worth putting in that time and money. So that's where I'm going with it, is a sort of plea to everyone to breed constructively. Don't just breed for numbers, and don't just breed for the show ring, and see what legacies you can leave behind as a rare breed breeder. That is as much as we could hope for from anyone, really. I don't really know how much more to say on that. Tullis, do you want to instruct me or point me in the right way?
Yeah, so can you hear me all right, Bruce?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so I think that's about your 10 minutes done, so that was perfectly timed. You were about 9 minutes, so spot on.
Thank you.
That. So I don't know if your plans are to stay on, Bruce, or what your plans are there, but we're going to hand over to the next speaker, which is Michael Dewhurst, chair and founder of the Pal Pony Heritage. No, sorry, that's Libby. I do apologise, I'm reading the wrong line. President of the Exmoor Pony Society. My apologies for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce, for that.
Yeah, thank you very much again to Bruce for the time in zooming in for this opportunity.
Well, and thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll just, yeah. Right, okay, the floor is yours.
Hi guys, yeah, I've just Michael, I'm from the Exmoor Pony Society and president at the moment. Thanks to you guys, Sally and I, for inviting us today. Just briefly to talk about what we've been doing in terms of trying to preserve the breed. So our Exmoor pony population crashed to about 50 individuals after the Second World War. There's various reasons for that, but all of the ponies that we have today are descended from that post-World War II population. So the Breed Society was sort of set up in 1921, and we closed the stud book in 62. And then everyone kind of forgot about the ponies, including the members. And it wasn't until sort of the late 70s and early 80s that we realised we'd lost about a third of our population. They just died out, and no one seems to know why. It's just we concentrated on some lines and not others. And since then, we sort of had lots of individuals within the society looking at the bloodlines that we have and ways of preserving them. So originally that was all done on paper. And then in 2002, I think it was, we started doing some work with RBST freezing stallion semen as part of a gene bank, because one of the things that we have a problem with is the vast majority of our breeding population is wild. It lives out on the moor, on Exmoor. It's not handled on a daily basis. And if we had an outbreak of a disease similar to foot and mouth one we've had, where there's culling, we could potentially lose almost 3/4 of our breeding population, and we'd have no way of replacing them because those animals are completely wild. They couldn't be housed, and if culling was used to eliminate a disease process, we would have no way of bringing them back. So we've been left some money from Francis Hathaway, and we've been trying to freeze semen from stallions of various bloodlines. At the moment, one of our limiting factors is how handled these ponies are. So it's good here today about collection of skin samples and epididymal harvesting as well, to look for maybe ways to bank some of this genetic material from our population that is completely wild and we're not able to sort of bring here for collection downstairs. So that's one of the challenges we're facing. And I think what's been said is dead right, that we don't know why we're saving this DNA, but we know that our ponies are very hardy, they're adapted to the environment. They've been present on Exmoor for, you know, hundreds if not thousands of years, and we'd like to sort of keep their genetics there if it's ever needed for some sort of unforeseen doomsday event going forward. So that's how we're using things to go forward.
Thank you very much. No, we can ask when you've got a bit of time. Michael's got a bit of time on his talk here. So has anybody got any questions specifically about the Exmoor while we've got the president with us? It's ideal opportunity.
Yes, can I ask, you've used wild herds, how do you maintain genetic diversity?
That's
Like one colt's not bossy and
it's
getting
interesting
all the
that,
way, you know, how do you do that?
because although Exmoor's quite a big place, quite big sections of the moor are kind of fenced and they belong to individuals, and historically they belong to certain families. So one of the longest established herds, that was a closed herd. They started with 2 colts and 2 fillies back in the 20s, and they didn't introduce a single bloodline until the late 80s. So all of the ponies in that herd were very, very inbred to themselves. So it was a population that was, although living on Exmoor, was very inbred to itself, but actually a lot of ponies hadn't moved out of that herd. So that's sort of down to individual farmers that were kind of managing them. In the autumn, it's not like the Chillingham cattle. So in the autumn, the ponies are gathered in. The foals are all sort of assessed phenotypically. So it used to be inspected and it used to be a pass-fail system. It's not quite that straightforward now. And then the owners of the herd would look at the mares, if any that they felt were older and looking poor, they might be removed from the herd and not turned back out onto the moor. A couple of people would come and buy foals at the gatherings in the autumn, so that would be how our country herds were formed. And then a lot of the colts would just be removed. So the breeding process was managed in that the foals were being removed in the autumn and the stallions were being selected. But other than that, they were sort of left to their own devices. And it was interesting. It wasn't until people started actually running DNA on these samples we thought actually some of these ponies stuck with their family all year round. But we would find actually some mares, they would be living with their stallion all year round, but when they came in season, they would totter off to the neighbouring moor, be covered by the stallion, and then make their way back to their herd stallion. And it wasn't until people started actually following them they were realising this was happening. So when we do parentage verification for all of our foals now. And it wasn't until we started doing that we started actually uncovering a few anomalies within the breeder's record, so to speak. So yeah, been interesting. I'd say it's something we're quite keen on. I think as a society is sort of parentage testing, trying to get a good solid sort of genetic base. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say we'll be publishing a genome shortly on that.
It's quite funny you're going on about, sorry about that mare tottering away.
Yeah.
Remember Sylvia's father-in-law telling me years ago, I had this pain in the backside coat with his mother, and he just still on his mum and quite vibrant. I remember he covered anything at about 2 months old. But it was interesting. Cameron did say to me, because he was harassing all the other mares and fillies, he says, I won't be bothered his mother, and he wasn't. It's funny. Never bothered his mother.
It's like that behaviour, yeah, absolutely.
So just on the unexpected parentage findings on
Yeah.
DNA verification, how accurate have you found pedigree records to be? Or what did you keep? Because I haven't really got any concept about it completely well.
No, so I think historically, though, for registering the stud book, they've submitted with sire and dam sort of breeder's choices, well, not breeder's choice, the breeder's sort of what they thought was the sire and dam. And then we started just sire testing initially, and that would be for herds where they would be running more than one stallion. So we assume the dam would be correct, that we would sort of observe the foal with its mother. So we'd assume the dam was correct, and we started just with sire testing just to try and filter things out. But then things started to get a bit more complicated, where we were finding, for some reason, either mares were swapping foals, or more likely as people, we were not observing properly which foal was with which mare. So then we moved to sort of full parentage testing. And we started doing that just on the wild ponies, and then we very quickly expanded to include sort of all the inbred ones and the wild ponies as well. So we sort of have quite a complete database now. And I think we're getting less anomalies as time goes forward, because the bigger our database gets, the more robust it is. And so actually we can now sort of search through the database looking for matches as well. If what we're told is the pedigree doesn't actually turn out to be the case, we can often find the correct pedigree off the back of that.
I was involved with Exmoor Ponies very, very many years ago. And it's really nice to hear that it's not just that pass and fail that it used to be when I was involved with it. That's really refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Great. But one of the other questions I've got is, I was aware that at the time I was there were herds on the moor which were old herds but weren't within the Exmoor Pony Society, that decided not to be involved, therefore they weren't registered, so that genetic input in essence at that point was lost. Is that still the case?
There are unregistered herds of ponies
Yeah.
running on the moor, yeah, absolutely. And I think
Knowing like the Mollen herd, but
Yeah.
they're clearly Exmoor ponies and a closed Exmoor pony breed. Have you got any plans to get those genetics involved within the society again?
at the moment, a lot of those genes are represented within other herds in the stud book. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've had is that every year the commons are gathered. So hopefully those ponies come in and are registered. Sometimes for whatever reason, ponies aren't gathered for 1 year, and 1 year can suddenly turn into 2 years or to 5 years or to 10 years, and in some cases 20 years, and the ponies have never been gathered. And then you've got a situation where you've got a group of mares who are registered, and we used to hot brand them, so we could identify those ones easily because they had a physical mark on them. So you could almost pick those ones out straight away and go, those 3 are the registered ones. And then you'd have 30 ponies of various ages, and no way really of working out who was who and who was the sire and who was the dam without sampling every single one of them, which at the moment is just, there's a massive cost of doing that, and who pays that? Is it the owner's responsibility to pay that, or is it, who's responsible for those animals?
Yeah.
That's the unanswerable question.
That question has moved on.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. There's no easy answer.
It sounds like not.
No, there's no easy answer because
Yeah.
people own the ponies,
Yeah.
so they have, I suppose, that responsibility. But then there's emotional responsibility, financial responsibility, as well as yes, that's a difficult one. Cool.
All right, well, thank you very much for that, Michael.
All right.
We are having it, if anybody's got any extra questions, we've got a discussion panel afterwards. Okay, so next up we have Libby, please. So Libby Robinson is from the Fell Pony Heritage Trust. And we're just going to put on a video that's going to play in the background for Libby.
Yes, please.
Just try and get, I seem to be stuck on there at the minute, so just try and.
Shall I put it on when I've just started? Have you got a little click that I can
Just
stick
need to
it
get
on?
this one over there. Okay,
Thank
you've got
you.
10 minutes. Yep.
Thank you very much. I'm Libby Robinson. I've been a fell pony, passionate fell pony person since I was 8. In the Lake District, I've been to different places, but still had a fell pony in my life since 1979. doing lots of different things, carriage driving, long distance riding, long distance driving, breeding, a bit of showing, but it's not my favourite. I think I'm going to be also, you can see I spend money on ponies. I've got a one stalk photograph. And I arrived in a 1991 car that got me here. These ponies that are in the film, this film was commissioned by the Fell Pony Heritage Trust in 2019. It is of the Dryburrows herd, David Thompson's ponies that are up near Haweswater up on Bampton Common. And it just shows how they live and what they're like. And I'm going to be a little bit like a politician, I'm afraid, and read from a piece of paper, because basically I've got quite a lot of statistics here. As you can see, this is a land-based breed. It has been made by nature and it lives in its environment. And these are its very, very important genetic traits: survival, hardiness, and brains. They teach their foals everything they need to know: where to go in bad weather, what food to eat, where to go to drink, and they will survive without us. There are custodians of the breed. We're at about 12 hill breeders in total that still run ponies like this up on the upland fell, extensively grazing. I'll go back to my notes. Thank you very much to Lucy and to Gemini Genetics for asking me to give a short talk about the ponies. I could talk for hours, but I'm not allowed to. As I say, these are living history. The landscape is living history. Please, please try to understand how important this landscape is. Please, please, the government, don't plant trees all over it. Please, please see that it is for grazing. Thank you. At this time, there are about 5,500 registered fell ponies in the UK, with about 1,000 ponies also in a number of countries abroad, including Australia. There are only 40% of our mare population being bred from. The mare line has far greater genetic diversity than the male. When researched in 2022, there were 112 breeders in the UK, and they were using 85 stallions to breed and register 274 foals. 99% of those was by natural cover, and 11 of those stallions were used on more than 8 mares each. Hill breeders cannot run their stallions on the fell. All covering is done in the in-by when the mares are brought back to the farm for foaling. Interesting to note that there are over 400 licensed registered stallions, with only 85 of these stallions being used for breeding. Colts are required to be licensed as 2-year-olds, whether they breed or not. Most of these stallions are used for showing. A lot of them have a much better shoulder, because people are buying these young stallions for movement in the show ring. It means that shoulders in the breeding stallions are not quite as good. Showing and breeding are not compatible, it seems, which is a great loss of diversity on the male line in this breed. It would seem more lowland breeders are looking at FIS, which has been mentioned, foal immunity syndrome. And this status they are wanting, unfortunately, more and more clear to clear at best, and bloodlines which are in fashion first. In my research, and I have questioned a number of breeders from all points of the UK. The hill breeders I found had a much broader option, as they are mostly volume breeders. They will be, say, try a carrier mating on rare bloodlines to see if they will get a clear foal. Because when you are doing carrier to clear, you will get a carrier cross. You will get a carrier foal that is not going to be ill. It's only about the breeding this syndrome. The actual animal will always be healthy and lead an active life. If you cross a carrier to a carrier, you have 1 in 4 chance of getting a syndrome foal. And as they say, the syndrome foal, it will have no immunity to the outside world. And so within 6 to 8 weeks, it will die. The volume breeders that I mentioned, they'll probably have 20, 25 mares that are running on the fell. They will bring down what they want to breed from, which will probably be 15, if not a bit more. And these then, they will try a carrier to carrier, because if they're good bloodlines, loss of 1 foal is not as terrible as perhaps if we were breeding 1 or 2 as private owners and having that to deal with. In the syndrome, it's education. I'm convinced that more and more people should understand where we're coming from with this. White markings are another in the breeds, which are in the breed standard, are acceptable, and that AI should sometimes be utilised, but all the older breeders felt that it was too expensive. Some do see the importance of maybe utilising AI on older stallions, which are still available, but have retired. These older stallions, Mirthwaite Look at Me is one of them. He's still around. Burnhead Bobby and Heltondale Starboy. They are all about, and maybe could ask their owners if they would like to dedicate their resources to the breed. As in certain areas in the UK, breeding fell ponies, it's really quite hard to find unrelated stallions sometimes. Breeders do ask that is there new advances in technology of freezing semen, as in the past fell ponies have been tried and unsuccessfully have produced fertile straws once they've been defrosted. New breeders should stop looking at the outward appearance, i.e. colour, markings, prefix that's doing well in the show ring, the amount of feather, mane and tail. Ideally, they should think about the whole pony, what it does, what it needs to do, what stamina, hardiness, and and the breed it has. And so important, the temperament and the intelligence you want. I cannot help thinking older breeders' instincts are just, as good as some technical analysts about which pony to use for what purpose. Yeah, that's the thing that comes into my head with the Sparks, is you've got to know the breed, you've got to see these ponies, you've got to understand where they come from and what they're like, before you sort of look at a list of breeds and a list of prefixes, and it's only part of it. Respectful education and discussion between hill breeders and established breeders should be sought. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree and go forward together. Maybe another inspection scheme should come in with the breed. Because of these small numbers, remember our percentages, they're very low. 40% of mares are only bred from. Maybe bringing in, say, a Dale Stallion to bring in a new line. Another thought would be to bring back the inspected mare section for a short window of, say, 3 or 4 years to open the gene pool up slightly. There are unregistered good ponies out there. Breeders should collaborate more internationally to create more diverse bloodlines. Semen from stallions gone abroad to be brought back as older lines that come back to the mother stud book. We have some really good mares in the UK for breeding, and they should have their standing set in stone, and they deserve it. I was lucky to return to the UK to become a hill breeder, with hefting my fell ponies back to their hardiness, living on the upland fells. I do appreciate being a breeder of fell ponies, as the society is open-minded about the selection of breeding stock I would like to use than other authoritarian breed societies. This shows up in the FIS status. We are not required to test our females. We are not required to make our test results public. We aren't required to only breed clear males so that they can be licensed. We are not being asked to breed the syndrome out of the breed. For a landscape adapted breed like a fell pony, it makes sense that you want the society to be loose-fisted about things, because each farmer is going to know best what characteristics his breeding stock needs to survive on their local landscape. Horsemanship, environment, and technology should all go hand in hand.
Thank you very much to Libby for that. Has anyone got any quick questions for Libby while we just load the other speaker onto Zoom?
That's a very, very quick one.
Yeah, we just got to
I'll
load
do
it.
that, yeah.
Yes.
I think the FIS gene is a really difficult one to consider. Usually in natural populations, deleterious genes would see themselves out. And I think because we're in a population that we're managing, that's why it's still hanging around. And I think you touched on that, and it's a really important point.
I think so. Yeah, and we mustn't try and eradicate it too quickly.
Well, we're getting rid of a whole load of genetics just because of the gene, and I think we have to be really careful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, anyone else? Okay,
Right,
thank you.
okay,
Thank
thank
you, Libby,
you.
for that.
Thank you very much. Catherine, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Sorry,
Right.
let me turn the sound up on you so you can.
We can hear you well, and we can see you well. You're right on the big screen, so you're at least doing a bit of intro.
Yep, so this is Catherine Lee, and she's an owner and breeder in Cleveland Bay. She's going to give our final 10-minute breeder talk of the day. And thank you again, Catherine was going to be here in person, but she's been at the lambing. So thank you again to another person for finding some time in a busy schedule to talk to us today. Over to you for the next 10 minutes, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you ever so much for inviting me here today. I very much appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to everybody. I also want to thank the staff from Gemini Genetics and Stallion AI, because obviously this gives us as Rare Breeds a place to stand and come and talk to a number of people who are also interested in this sort of area, the opportunity to promote our breed and the positive contributions the societies do for each of the breeds. I am Catherine Lear. I am the owner and of Braithwaite Stud. We have produced pure Cleveland Bays and have done for many, many years. It was first started, our stud was first started in 1985, when my parents, David and Sandra Anderson, started breeding pure Cleveland Bays, and it has gone on from there. And over the time, we have managed to successfully produce and register 63 pures, which is just fantastic. As a child, I was always heavily involved with the breeding and organising side of everything to do with the horses. And I had the absolute privilege of being able to learn from a huge number of old breeders and enthusiasts of the breed, which has ignited my passion over the years. It is it's just been fantastic to be part of it. And as an owner of Cleveland Bays, I am really keen to continue producing quality animals and encouraging others to also do so, because it's so important that we maintain this breed. It's just a phenomenal breed. I'm also part of the council of the Cleveland Bay Horse Society, so I'm a trustee and I work on the council, and I work to help and try and benefit other breeders and members of the society to promote this breed in a positive way. So going back to our stud, we currently stand 3 pure stallions. Those stallions are all open for public stud, so that anyone who has either a pure mare or a non-Cleveland Bay mare are welcome to come and use our horses. We have 11 breeding mares currently at our stud, and 4 young stock that are coming up the ranks. As a breeder, I don't tend to put mares in foal unless they are really ready for it until 4 years of age. The odd occasion we do put 3-year-olds in, but we tend to leave ours till they're 4 years of age, because they are mature in their bodies, in their minds, and they're ready to go on and develop a good foal. So for those of you who are not familiar with the breed, I'll just give you a quick overview of the Cleveland Bay. So the Cleveland Bay is in itself, by its name, bay in colour. So the body of the horse is all bay. It has black mane and tail, and it has black legs. Breed standards say they're between 16 hands and 16'2", so they're a big breed. They're big, strong across their backs and deep in their body. They have really good legs and limbs. 4 really solid feet is what we aim for, trainability and everything else. We also realise that they are a fantastic outcross for other breeds, so they make some amazing crosses which excel in the equestrian world. They have an amazing trainable temperament, a fantastic personality, and they become very addictive, as you can tell from the number of horses that we currently have at our stud. As a society, because I've pushed or mentioned previously that I am part of the Cleveland Bay Horse Society, as a society we have been very keen to be up to date with modern technologies and part of the progression within the equestrian world. So as I know you've already previously heard a fantastic talk from Andy Dell, and as you were probably aware from that, we helped him found the Sparks program, which is absolutely fantastic, and that program has been put out and helped a number of rare breeds across the side. We have also provided support and for the tissue sampling, which is now up and running with Gemini Genetics. We were one of the first breed societies to help with that, and we also help support with the semen sexing. We feel that it's just really important that we make use of these amazing technologies to help the breed. Part of that, I also need to extend a thanks to HBLB. HBLB is the Horse Racing Levy Betting Board, and they provide rare breed equine societies with a large amount of money each year, for which we as a society are allowed to allocate to our breeders and members. They have to be UK members, and that is to help with the production of or putting foals on the ground and the positive promotion of the breed. Without that money, we would struggle, because they help to support our breeders in form of costs towards veterinary care for the horses, getting them into foal, carrying the foal to term, and then providing a payment for the foal when it arrives. We have also, over the years, also now started to really encourage the use of semen, sextons, of frozen semen and chilled semen for AI. We're very, very aware as a society that the number of people who are able to hold and retain a colt to use to help breed the breed is getting less. This is only purely down to people not having their own land as much, being on liveries, and of course then they can't have a colt in a lot of these places. So we understand that, and so we have to make use of these modern technologies that are made available to us so that we can increase our genetic gene pool, and we can put foals on the ground. And by doing that, it's by having frozen semen available and chilled and fresh semen. So we latterly, not that long ago, early in January, held a meeting with our members to ask them what they wished us to do with our HBLB money going forward. And a lot of them were keen to make use of these technologies that are coming to the fore now. We are, as a society, now trying to work out how we can help our breeders and support them to make greater use of things like embryo transfer. So particularly if we have a purebred mare who is competing at quite a high level or a good level for the owner, they may not want to stop with that competition side, which is a positive promotion for the breed in itself. And it's how we as a society can help support them to be able to do embryo transfer, for example, so that a pure foal can come out of this and help us maintain this breed. So at the minute, the prices are quite costly for the owners, so it is not necessarily going to be readily available to all of our people who are interested, but it is something that we are looking into to help them and find ways of getting this in the future. The other thing that we're wanting to do is also to help support the stallion owners we've got and find out how we can do collections from our stallions so that we can get the semen around the country better and more readily available, so that the person, say, for example, who has a mare in Cornwall who wants to use the stallion in Scotland, we can get them together to produce the purebred foal, and we can have that on the ground. But it's without necessarily moving either one of those to the other end of the country in order to do that. I think the lady previously on the discussion had touched on this, and I think I'd like to touch on it as well. But one of the things that we have got to do when we are either making use of embryo transfer or sex semen, and all these wonderful technologies we have to hand to help our breeds. One of the things that I think we also have to do is make sure that we apply a level of common sense to it, so we don't overpopulate a particular line within the breed, because that then becomes a bottleneck later on. So it is using it productively for the benefit. So for example, if we have a line which is running out, we haven't had any fillies for a long time, it's just been colts produced, if we can make use of that sex semen to be able to put that filly on the ground so that we can then keep that line going, that is a fantastic benefit. What we don't want to do is have the same 10 foals from the same mare and stallion, all of the same breeding, coming all at once, because that's not going to help our genetics either. So it's making use of these things positively, but also having, just being a bit constructive as to how we do it. The other thing that we also need to do on all of these things, irrespective, is to make sure that whatever we produce as breeders have a purpose and a use, because we need to be able to show that these horses can go out and do anything that we need them to do. Cleveland Bays are so versatile, and they are wonderful, wonderful species, and they can turn their hoof to absolutely anything. They can go over cross-country courses, they can go over show jumps, they can do dressage, they can pull a carriage, they can be that family pony, I say because it's 16 hands, but they can be that family horse where a young child can sit on the back and have a really good giggle and have a laugh and enjoy their time with their equine friend, but equally be there to be able to go up quite a few notches for the next person who sits on board to have some fun. And it's important that we have the right conformation and we have the right temperament being bred from. So making use of these technologies is wonderful, but we also make sure that we keep the presence of the breed as it is, so that we can keep using it positively going forward. I think I've covered all of that. So just to summarise, really, the society really encourage and actively encourage people to make use of these modern technologies. I think they're absolutely wonderful. We need to have the frozen semen. We need to try and encourage collections from stallions so that they can be used both overseas for our overseas members who are breeding some fantastic horses, and also make use of for our UK breeders. And we also need to keep our eye on the modern technologies so that we can use them for such as embryo transfer, which allow more people into the breed. So if they can't find a mare, if someone says, okay, you can have some embryos from my mare and that will produce you a foal, and that's one way of coming into the breed, that's wonderful. So it's just all these excellent technologies. So yeah, the breed is absolutely wonderful. It deserves to be kept. It can produce the most amazing horses, and we should be very proud of this very strong British breed, because they are just wonderful. Ev, thank you very much. Have you got